his husband. It's not a coincidence, the linker thing. So I'm curious, how many people here were at this property when the factory farm was still here? How many people saw it? So not that many. It's funny, over time that number's going to continue to go down. I remember the first time I saw it. It was about 9 or 10 years ago, maybe 8. And Susan was leading a tour, so I figured I should probably find out what is going on. So I came out with her and some volunteers, and she gave us a walking tour up and down the length of the massive chicken coops. They were just huge, and we were trudging through, you know, twigs and puddles. There wasn't even a path, and the buildings were just enormous. And Susan started telling everybody the plan. And at this time, I didn't even really know the plan. And she was saying that, you know, before we start building our multi-million-dollar animal sanctuary, you know, this thing that's never been built before that happens, we needed to tear these buildings down, remove the debris, and then restore the land so that it was environmentally friendly and safe. And I remember thinking two things distinctly at this moment. One, I thought,
crazy.
no, I'm getting there. No, I was marveling at her bravery. It's something I do to this day. There's no one more courageous than Susan. So I was thinking that. But I was also thinking, oh my God, what has she gotten us into? I married a crazy lady. And it was hitting me in waves that these buildings were now my problem too. And I was at a point in my life where I just wasn't quite sure that I wanted an abandoned factory farm. But I had no choice. And the thing that people kept saying all along, and then I started saying it myself, was, if anyone can pull this off from scratch, it's her. And they were right. But she certainly didn't do it alone. She had the help, literally, of thousands of people. It's just been amazing watching this come together. From volunteers to just members of the community, organizations, churches, schools, politicians, members of the media, and of course, our donors. And you and your support. This is something I've said a lot. Many of you have heard me say this at various receptions, but we're completely funded through philanthropy. We have no other sources of revenue. Everything we have, literally everything here, is because of your generosity. And we're so grateful for your help, and so grateful for your faith. You know, no one was a bigger doubter than me. I put on a good game face, but you know, it was scary. I'm still scared, but slightly less scared as time goes on. And we're just so honored to have you here today, and just to turn around and see this and not see that factory farm is an amazing thing. So now I want to introduce someone who has played a huge role. Her role cannot be overstated in what she's done for the organization. She's been with us since the early days, been with us through some dark times and some great times, through her investment of time, her financial support, her leadership. If I had to summarize what she's done for us, she's helped transform our companions from what was once just a great idea into a great organization. And we're proud to have her as our first board chair. I'd like to introduce Valerie Friedman.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out today and seeing this amazing advancement. It started, as Mitch explained, with something that bore no resemblance to what we see today. And you people play a big role in making it happen. We, as Mitch said, we couldn't do it without our individual volunteers. We get nothing of any magnitude from anything other than individuals. So it's really all about us. But that's sort of a two-edged sword, because the more we accomplish, despite the involvement of 300 or so volunteers, I mean, every time I look at our Companions magazine, and I have copies with me wherever I go, and I'm handing them out like confetti, the comment I always tell people is, this is done almost entirely, except for the printing, we pay something for the printing, everything else is done by volunteers. The brilliant writing, the layout, no organization accomplishes more. I'm a financial person by training, and anyone who knows that knows I look at the bottom line for everything. One of the things about this organization that never fails to impress me is the efficiency with which we accomplish whatever we set out to accomplish. No huge salaries, no huge overhead. We are really, the money is going to the animals, and that makes me feel very proud. So when I ask other people to step forward and join me, I know we're working towards the right cause. The issue, of course, is that the more we accomplish and the more we see that we need to accomplish, the higher our goals become every year. Because we can't get there despite our volunteers and despite the efforts of Susan and Mitch and everybody else who gives far beyond what we could ever expect. It does take money, and that's where the rest of us have our obligation to do the best we can to make it possible for us to continue to grow. This is just the beginning. We have many, many, many more cottages on our agenda to think about. Right now, not at this moment, we're going to settle into these. We're going to staff up because the more cottages means the more people, the more animals we can save. We're, in a way, constantly upping the ante to continue to grow. So I want all of you to come and look around and feel comfortable that whatever donation you've given is being well marshaled by the board, the development committee, the finance. We have fabulous people handling our finance. We have an amazing staff. And volunteers. You should all be very proud to be part of this organization. And now let me turn it over to Susan, who is going to show you that she's not crazy at all.
Boy, hide it very well. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you all for being here. I've been looking forward to this day for all year. In fact, it was a year around this time. Last year they were here, and we were celebrating the first phase of construction. So it's really been wonderful. First, I want to thank Valerie very much and thank her for her leadership and friendship and her partnership with our organization. We are here to celebrate the opening of 2 new cottages, and I want to thank Valerie's sister, Lita Orzik, and Lita's business partner, Gail Epstein, for their extraordinary gift. It was at that point where we announced their pledge for the next phase last year at this event, and without their gift to start off their extraordinary gift, we would not be here today. So thank you very much for that. And of course, one of the houses is named the Henry House, which we'll soon be touring, named after Lita's beautiful dog, Henry, who was recently featured in a Mutt's comic strip that I just saw. It's hanging in the cottage, so you'll see that. I also want to thank Chris and Chuck Shivery. Chris has been on our board for a long time, and their leadership and commitment to our organization has been extraordinary. The other cottage, called the Chelsea House, is named after Chris and Chuck's beloved dog who passed away, Chelsea. That's the other cottage we'll be touring as well. And of course, I wanted to thank all of you who have given in so many ways to our organization. You know, we really started as a concept and as a vision, and you can have the best laid plans, but unless you have the resources, the financial and volunteer resources to back it up, it's just a nice plan. And so you've realized this, and so you being part of this today means the world to me for you to celebrate with us today. There are so many people that I like to thank, hi Sarah. But you know, I just want to collectively thank you all, and I look forward to talking with you individually when we do the tours later. So a year ago, nearly to this day, we were here, although it was a little warmer last year, celebrating the sanctuary's opening. And at that time, we had announced, in a year's time, we're going to complete phase 2. We like to just say these things and then, then put the pressure on ourselves. But, you, our donors, have helped us make this promise, this pledge, a promise. And one of the sheets that I've given you has a list of all the donors who have given to our second phase. And I want to thank you all for your generosity. In many ways, the sanctuary has exceeded all of our expectations, and today we're going to unveil the completion of construction of these 2 new cottages, which will be open in the beginning of the year. Obviously, we still have some more site work that needs to be done, but we wanted you to be here before the winter came to help celebrate with us. But the sanctuary, we started with this rescue cottage to try to experiment in it, to make sure we knew what the design was going to be for the future cottages. And in so many ways, it has exceeded our expectations. First of all, with the volunteers. We have over 70 volunteers just here alone, and that has blown our mind. I mean, the volunteers and the time they give, if you look at the schedule of volunteers, you'd be amazed. People are constantly here, constantly spending time with the animals, and that has made the difference for our entire organization. The other thing that's kind of exceeded our expectation has been the visitors that have come. So many visitors come here, and they walk in, and the first thing they say is, "It doesn't smell like a shelter." That's the first thing they say. The second thing they say is, "Oh, the animals all look so happy." And when they see these animals, what we found is that translates into adoptions. Adoptions for animals that once were very, very hard, or people would expect were hard to adopt. animals that were seniors, animals that might have been abused that are rehabilitating. Because instead of being stuffed in a cage, they're laying on a couch, and people can experience them as they truly are and fall in love with them immediately. But most impressive for us and what's exceeded our expectation is how the animals themselves have responded to be in this environment and with these people. I mean, it's something we've always imagined, but until we actually bring dogs in, sometimes so abused, so beaten, set them up in their cottages, get their bellies full, and tuck them in for the night. We watch on our monitors, and we see them sleeping like little babies. And it's amazing how resilient they've been in this. So all of these things have exceeded our expectation in so many ways. And we were just blown away by this experiment and what we've learned from it. So for that reason, I wanted to invite some of our alumni dogs that have been adopted from here. But before I introduce them, I wanted to... Dudley's showing off. Before I introduce our alumni, I wanted to give you the inspiration of why we thought to invite our alumni to celebrate this event. Now, many of you know that before starting our companions, I had worked at a shelter for many, many years. And one of the most dangerous parts of working in a shelter for a shelter worker is taking dogs and cats in and out of their cages, whether it's the concrete kennels or the stainless steel cage banks. The time when you're most likely going to get bit, scratched, or attacked is when you're literally trying to take them in and out of cages. And the reason for that, and you would think it maybe doesn't make sense, because if you're going to take a dog out for a walk, you'd think they'd be happy to get out. But the truth is, when animals are in such an unnatural and frightening environment, they have this contradiction of emotions. Part of them feels secure being backed into their little corner where they can be safe, but part of them wants to be out and be free. So that's often what's more stressful is putting them back into the cages, where again, they want to be protected, but they also have this natural instinct not to be cornered. What's the only thing that was more difficult in working in the shelter than that was when adoptions would fail and the animals would come back to the sanctuary, to the shelter. And they usually would come out of the car, sniff the air, and kind of take inventory of where they were. And then when they realized where they were, it was a sad situation. A lot of times they'd have to be dragged back into the building. And it was heartbreaking. And the reason why I mention this is not just to bum you out. It's because the memory of this came crashing back to me on July 20th of this year. We were having a volunteer picnic here at the sanctuary, and all of our volunteers, of course, are welcome to bring their dogs. And so we invited our volunteers to bring the dogs. Now, one of the benefits of having so many volunteers is they meet the dogs, fall in love, and adopt them. So a lot of our alumni came back to the picnic, too. Well, Dudley, our little buddy over here, was adopted 3 months before by our volunteer, Sue Petke, and came to the picnic. And as soon as he came here, he came out of the car, looked around, and thought, I'm back. And he freaked out, but in the opposite way. He went insane. He started spinning around. He literally got so excited about being back here. And then when he saw Marie, he lost it. And I literally mean like really lost it. And then he started finding this person and that person that he knew. And okay, I guess the best thing to say is he lost his tongue. And we have a photo to prove it. Here. He lost his tongue. I thought that. And then 3 hours later, when they were all at the dog park playing, he still was trying to cuddle with Marie. Here, why don't you flip it? He couldn't. He wanted to get inside her. He was so happy to be back. And I thought, you know, if anything is an endorsement of the work that we're doing, it's this. It's how animals respond to being back here. When they first were brought here, often in the worst physical condition. I mean, Dudley came here starved and pretty much half dead. And his memories of being here have been nothing but wonderful. So that's why I thought, well, we've got a lot of alumni who would love to come back, and it's not going to be stressful for them. It's going to be a pleasure for them to come back here, because this has been a place of real healing for them. So in your program, you'll see their stories. So I wanted to introduce some of our alumni that could be here with us today. Of course, Dudley with Sue Petke. And Tinka, when you were here, if you were here last year at the first tour, you probably met Tinka inside the cottage. So she's back. This is her family here. Cheyenne, give a wave. Okay. And then Barnaby was here earlier, but he has a very busy schedule, so he had to leave. Now, if you look at your program, you'll notice Hank, who looks nothing like our Hank now. Where is Hank? There he is. Hank's having some cider. He came as a little juvenile, and he's totally rehabilitated. And then, Aggie, where's Aggie? There's Aggie. You probably can see the little puppy that's here. Aggie and her litter. came here. It was actually a cruelty case where the whole litter and the parents were confiscated, the owners were arrested, and Aggie and her sisters came here and rehabilitated, and Aggie's not a baby anymore. And then, of course, we have Sarah, who's here. Sarah is also one of our first sanctuary residents and has found a wonderful home with the Frezas. And where's Lucas? There's Lukey. Lukey's over here. So I thought, what better way to have some of the dogs who have been adopted from the sanctuary come back and celebrate the opening of the sanctuary. I mean, it seems like a perfect thing that the dogs who once walked the same path that a lot of dogs who now will be rescued in these 2 cottages can come here first and celebrate the opening and the completion of phase 2 of construction. But before we start that, I also wanted to let you know that not only are we celebrating these cottages being complete with construction, but we're celebrating memorializing the history of this land. Now, we've traveled a long way, and I know that we referenced the factory farm that used to be here. But part of our celebration is to permanently recognize that. And in 2009, when we demolished the buildings that were here, we specifically left a portion of the factory farm wall, which is back there in that corner. Because we knew that someday we wanted to do something with that wall, some kind of display to memorialize what was here before it was an animal sanctuary. So earlier this year, one of our wonderful volunteers, Julie Stankwitz, give a wave, Julie. She's one of our great volunteers in the sanctuary. She came to me and she said, I'd like to do an educational project to help educate people about humane choices, particularly with respect to the food industry. So I started telling her about the wall that was here and the factory farm that was here. And someday we want to do something with it. And she said, well, let's do it now. I'd love to take charge of this. So she started getting really excited about it. And I said, all right, this is actually coming together. And she started showing me her vision of what it was going to be. And so as she was coming together with this idea of this display, I thought, this is going to cost a lot of money. And we haven't planned for this. We planned someday, but not immediately. So I made a few calls. One of the first calls I made was to my friend Annie Hornish. And Annie's here today. Give a wave, Annie and Neil. And so I had called Annie and I explained what was going on. And I said, we're looking for a substantial donation to get this project done. And she called me back about 3 minutes later and she said, sign Neil and I up. And I wanted to recognize that Annie and Neil generously pledged $10,000 to help us complete this project. So thank you, Neil. Now, they have been part of this land's history since the factory farm was here. I mean, those horrible buildings, few people were inside them. But they not only were inside, they were inside. Cutting pieces of the battery cages out so they could be transferred all across the country into classrooms to educate people about factory farming and the choices that people make with their lifestyle and eating. So, and to be part of this remembrance wall meant a great deal to us. So thank you for making it possible. And I also want to recognize Mandy. Give a wave, Mandy, our designer. She's the person who's the brains and the talent behind most of our publications and pretty much anything you see graphically. And Paula Fisher, who's videotaping. So the next thing I needed to do was our graphic design and our artists. So I signed them up. And in 4 months, this project came together. And so today, as part of our tour, we're going to do a tour of the factory farm wall. We call it the Remembrance Wall. And to not only memorialize what this land was before, but to also try to educate people about what factory farms are. And hopefully, if you're so compelled after you read the information, you'll make the pledge that many of our staff did on the wall and sign up to really make some different lifestyle choices as a result. So now I just wanted to recognize, of course, the guys, I should say, that made all this happen. Zlotnick Construction, Greg, give a wave. Many of you have known Greg and his team at Zlotnick Construction. Rick Elber, can you give a wave? And John somewhere. There's John. They have been wonderful through the years. And I'll tell you, I would be lying if I didn't say that we played up the, well, we're just a bunch of girls here at the sanctuary, to help us. But I think they like it, because they always help us. So whether it's putting up this tent for us and making sure it doesn't blow away, or digging us out of snowstorms.
Me with scotch.
We do supply them with the scotch. But yeah. But they're great, and they're always here for us, and so we wanted to make them recognize their contributions and for their patience of honestly dealing with a bunch of girls who sometimes don't know anything about construction and want things that probably aren't as realistic as one would think. So thank you for being partners with us over the years. So now I wanted to invite you to explore the sanctuary. I'm sorry for the chill in the air, but the heat is cranking in these cottages. Rick and John are going to be in our 2 new cottages to greet you and to tell you a little bit about the design and the construction. Laura and Paula will be in the rescue cottage on the cat level up top, and Marie will be with the dogs. And Julie will be at the Remembrance Wall, meeting you and greeting you and telling you more information about her vision with the project. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for celebrating this second of many, many accomplishments for the animals. And I look forward to seeing you again and enjoying the tour. So thank you.
There's one picture over here if you're taking pictures.
Little research, and we can't see Barnaby. It was pretty clear that Barnaby wasn't really a good fit. But in the meantime, the puppies are out there. My wife just wanted to go, let's take a look at the puppies. Went out there.
Hi, Lauren.
Close by.
Place.
Back then.
I know, huh?
Yeah.
Really? Well, you still have leaves on your tree?
Oh, yeah.
It's not peak. It's past peak, but there's still
Wow.
a lot of colors, a lot of leaves left, even on the sugars. Some of the maples have leaves.